We have a ton of new content coming up in Borderlands 3 in the upcoming weeks and months, and it's very likely that the Borderlands show is still underway at the time of posting this video, but thanks to the awesome folks over at 2K, we have a ton of this information given to us in advance, so I kinda wanna share all of that with you guys, as well as some brand new footage that you've likely never seen before, including stuff on the Guardian Takedown that has been teased for some time at this point. We have a ton of info on that, as well as its release date, but also a ton of info and footage on the third paid campaign DLC called Bounty of Blood: A Fistful of Redemption, which is basically that Western themed DLC that has been talked about and teased for a number of months at this point. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super awesome, and let's jump right into it. Let's begin with the release dates for both of these content updates, starting with the Takedown at the Guardian's Breach, which you can expect to drop on June 4th, exactly 2 weeks from this point, also on a Thursday if you were wondering, so just 2 more weeks up until then. But of course a few weeks after that, on June 25th, we are going to get the third paid campaign DLC called Bounty of Blood: A Fistful of Redemption. So quite a busy month of June when it comes to content for Borderlands 3, and a ton of stuff in there that I'm going to cover. But of course, let's get started with the Takedown, since this is going to be the first piece of content that we're going to get. So the Guardian Takedown is going to follow a very similar formula to the Melee 1 Black site that we had a few months ago, though there are some very awesome additions in there as well, including a brand new planet called Minos Prime, where all of the Takedown is going to happen. So this is going to begin with us undertaking a reconnaissance mission on the new planet called Minos Prime to locate the source of a mysterious Guardian signal. Unfortunately, upon arrival, we're going to end up under siege by a group of rogue enemies who have taken control and transformed Minos Prime, so you can expect a ton of new enemies in there. There's going to be low gravity platforming sections according to the info provided, most probably very similar to the one in the Moxie DLC that we had, where there were sections with a low gravity, and honestly I really enjoyed that one. But on top of these, we will also get environmental puzzles, and we will have to overcome both a mini boss as well as a final boss encounter in a very similar structure to the first Takedown that we had a few months ago. Should we survive, we will be rewarded with a ton of new items, including themed weapons, gear, and collectible cosmetics. So it's very curious to see if this is going to follow or have the same size as the previous Black Site Takedown that we had, because that one was quite lengthy and it was also very challenging. And speaking of the challenge, this is again going to be that as well. It's going to be fine-tuned for a party of 4, but it's very likely that there's going to be builds out there that are more than capable of soloing them and taking down even the end boss. So I'm really curious to see how the characters will evolve and how the builds will evolve by the time all of this drops. Nonetheless, I do want to go over that Western themed DLC, the Bounty of Blood: A Fistful of Redemption, third paid campaign DLC that yes, you are going to need to purchase separately, or if you already own the seasonal pass that also includes this, then you don't have to worry about anything. But this is going to be the third one in the series after the Moxie's Heist DLC and the most recent Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC, and it's also going to feature some brand new settings. There's going to be brand new zones to explore, new characters to interact with, and of course some brand new story, hopefully as long as the previous DLCs, because they were definitely top notch. According to the brief that I have over here, we will have to travel to a harsh desert planet called Gehenna, I hope I pronounced that correctly, to claim a bounty on the Devil Riders, a vicious gang of bandits that's been terrorizing the small town of Vestige, or well, Vestige. I think I've pronounced that incorrectly, but I'm European, so we kind of tend to make everything French. But nonetheless, along the way you'll have to run into fresh faces like Rose, who's a warrior who's adept with the pistol as well as with the katana, and even Juno, a rough and tumble brawler with a checkered past. Your actions will have a direct impact on Vestige or Vestige and its denizens or citizens as you help build the town back up through the story missions and crew challenges alike. So I think that this is the first type of feature that we get in Borderlands that actually does this, where you actively take control and rebuild a town, which honestly sounds very immersive to say the least. Among other additions, Bounty of Blood will also feature some brand new Jet Beast hover bikes that are fully customizable. These are going to be very useful at traversing the open plains quicker, and they can also be outfitted with artillery like dual machine guns and even mortar weapons. There's also some brand new gimmicky items that are going to be very helpful both at combat as well as exploration, and we have a couple of very interesting examples over here, including something called the Trader Weed that you can turn enemies into allies with when you shoot them with the Trader Weed. So it's very interesting to see for how long this lasts, because I really hope that it lasts for the entire duration of the fight, even though that might be a little bit unbalanced. Another one is something called the Breeze Bloom that lets you boost your character up at great heights so you can reach otherwise inaccessible areas, which again sounds very interesting, and it might imply that there's a ton of puzzle elements in the new map or other areas, secret ones that we might want to reach by this means. Of course, there's going to be loads of other items in there as well and loot to collect, including plenty of Western themed weaponry according to the brief that I have over here. Anyway, let's move over some of those screenshots I was talking about. You've likely seen them throughout the video, but this is going to be one of the Guardian Takedown enemies. I'm pretty sure that this is the end boss, or at the very least one of the mini bosses in there, and he definitely looks very menacing, pretty huge if this is of any scale, and it does appear that he has some wings on the back, which begs the question, is this enemy able to fly like how it is in World 10 Phase 2, where the upper body detaches and starts flying? So I'm really curious if this is going to be part of the encounter too, and maybe Gearbox also decided to add some puzzle elements to the fight too, like how it was with one of the bosses in the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC. It remains to be seen, but the overall theme looks really freaking cool. Now let's move over some of the main characters in that third DLC I was talking about, and one of them was Rose. She of course wields her pistol, but on the back she also has a katana. Not really sure how well you can see that, but it's very likely that we will interact with her in a very similar way, how we did it with Gage at the beginning of the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC, where she kinda acts like a guide slash tour and brings us to the main town, and from there on we just progress on our own. The next one, we have a couple of enemies, Devil Riders, a male and a female, but the female over here carries a really awesome shotgun. Of course, probably Jacobs, probably one of the new weapons you can expect in that DLC, but this looks like an oversized Garcia, like a Garcia on steroids, with 3 barrels over there with oversized rounds on the side, and it just looks all around amazing. And Jacobs was always an amazing manufacturer with a ton of amazing examples in there, so I cannot wait for this DLC. Flak players are going to have a hell of a time in this DLC, and most probably Zane as well. We also have a screenshot of the brand new vehicle called the Jet Beast hover bike that I've talked about earlier, and here is the second important character in the DLC riding it, Juno, but it definitely looks very interesting. It's exactly what I've expected and more, and that skull over there at the front is definitely really awesome. We also have some screenshots of the skins you can get in the Bounty of Blood DLC, including the face masks for all of the characters, though I will say this, the one for Flak again kinda looks like a freaking bucket, so he keeps getting the short end of the stick for a number of DLCs at this point, but I guess it's alright. And I'm especially loving the one on Amara and the one on Zane with that face mask going on over there, so it definitely looks really awesome, and I'm kinda liking the theme right here. And finally we have a couple more screenshots with the buildings in the town, and of course one of them is the saloon. You can see it right here being quite packed, filled with a ton of characters that we might get to interact with. It's very likely that this is going to be our center of operations, where we go in, talk with the NPCs, take missions and continue that story and whatnot, in a very similar way to the way we did it in the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC, where we had a different bar with different characters. So yeah, Gearbox is definitely loving those bars and those saloons, to say the least. We of course have a outside screenshot of the entire town, or at the very least a huge section of it, and it's definitely very packed. It's filled with a ton of architecture. It's also very cool looking in that Western theme, as I was saying, and I'm very curious to see what else we can do inside of it. Is this going to be another one of those towns that are kind of invaded by enemies and you have to take them down, or is it something that you go in and it's just like, you know, free of enemies and it's kind of like a safe zone, or is it a combination between these two where certain parts of the town are going to spawn enemies that you have to take down? Again, very similar to the one in Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC. But yeah, this is it with the update. Of course, a ton of very exciting information, but I'm gonna leave it at that for now. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.